Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Tuesdays. It's May 24th, 2022. Throughout this presentation, if you have any questions, please just, if you're on Zoom, open up the chat box, put your questions in there. As our speaker takes a break, we'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. For those watching on Facebook, please just put your questions into the comment field. I am monitoring that feed. Please note this event is being recorded. It's currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. And you're more than welcome to put your contact information in there. You know, the whole point about being on LinkedIn is to connect with other people. So connect with other people who are on this call, put in your personal information in the chat window, copy it over, and that way you can connect with other people who were here today. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org, a website to help those who were unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I started a second website, careerusa.org, to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since the late 1990s, and I'll tell you about our upcoming program that we're having at the end of this session. Hold on just one second here. Let's see here. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. The practice interview team, if you need to practice your interviewing skills, this is a great way to do it. It's all free. Just go to dallaspicrew.com. Remember, your LinkedIn profile and your resume doesn't get you a job. It only gets you a phone call. How well you practice your interviewing skills is what gets you that next job. Well, we have 4 outstanding speakers who talk about LinkedIn. They rotate through on a monthly basis. Today, our speaker is Kirk Bonamotter. He's a retained search consultant at Linked Executive Search. He pays LinkedIn big bucks to do what he does and show what he shows. So, Kirk, thank you very much for being with us, and I'll turn it over to you. You're muted.
How's that?
There we go. Now we can hear you.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to work with you, Jeff, and everybody here on the call. I always start these calls out by telling everybody that I'm here for you all, for everybody on this call. It's not about me. I have a job, but if you've got a question about your search or what you're doing or where you're going or who you're talking to or anything that's going on, certainly raise your hand and let Jeff throw it out to the audience, because if you've got the question, somebody else might have that same question. So just a little bit about myself. My name is, again, as Jeff said, is Kirk VandeMotter, and I'm a retained search executive. And I've been doing this for about 16 years now. I came out of corporate America, but not as a hiring, not as a recruiter or as an HR executive, but as a hiring manager. I worked for companies like PepsiCo, Dr. Pepper 7-Up, AT&T. I did some startup technology stuff. And so I come at the hiring people in a different philosophy, or a different way than most recruiters do, because I've been a hiring manager my whole life. So I look at candidates and talk to candidates maybe a little bit differently than other people do. So that's a little bit about me. And I think that's important for everybody to understand who I am and what I've done and how I got into this business, because it's different than most other recruiters. And that is one of the biggest differentiators that I've got, is that I'm a hiring manager by trade. So let's just talk a bit about recruiting and the differences, Jeff, about, the different kinds of recruiters that are out there, because I think it's important as candidates embark on their searches. They have, and during the days, they have, excuse me, different conversations with different people. But the bottom line is there's really just three different kinds of recruiters, and not good, bad, and ugly. But the three kinds of recruiters are first, there are internal recruiters. And these are recruiters that work for the corporation. So a company I used to work for, AT&T, we had, a very large recruiting team that was staffing retail stores, call centers, the folks that fix the towers, and everything in between, the executive offices plus some. So those are internal recruiters, and companies people that work for or work for a company, they get their job orders or their requests from the senior management team. So throughout their day, they get different orders to fill for executives in their organization. And again, it may be in a retail front, it may be in a call center environment, it could be an executive role. But they're working for the company and they get paid by the company, and that's their job, is to fill jobs and to talk to candidates. The reason that it's important to know that there's internal recruiters is because their focus and their way of going about their process is a little bit different than external recruiters. And so you're driving down 75 at 75 miles an hour and your phone rings. It's not a number that you recognize, but you're looking for a job. And so you actively pick up that phone, and the phone call says something like this: "Hey, Bob, this is John Jones. I'm a recruiter and I'm looking to fill a job that you might have some experience in." And it's okay, first and foremost, not to take that call if you don't recognize the phone number, and try to get somewhere where you can be quiet to take that call. But if you've picked up the phone and you want to start a conversation while you're driving, that's okay. But the first question is a very logical question for candidates to ask a recruiter, is just, what kind of recruiter are you? And when they say that they're an internal recruiter, they're pretty focused on what they're trying to fill, because they know the company well, they know the hiring manager well, they know the kind of candidates that they're looking for. And so they're going to be pretty straightforward to the point. There's not going to be a lot of discussion. There's a second kind of recruiter, and those are contingent recruiters. And those are the recruiters that a company might hire 3 or 4 contingent recruiters to fill one job. And the thought process is that more is better. And so a company that's trying to fill a sales role or trying to fill another role in their organization, they might reach out to 2 or 3 contingent recruiters and ask them to help fill that job. In that case, nobody pays anything, nobody pays any money for a search until the candidate's been found. And so when a candidate's been found and placed in that organization, then that firm, and only that firm, receives a fee for that of whatever they've agreed or negotiated. But it's generally somewhere between 20 and 25% of the first year salary for that candidate. All those fees are paid for by the company to the recruiter, not the candidate. So as a candidate, you should never be paying a recruiter. It's important to know those recruiters because they're not going to spend a lot of time to get to know you on the phone. They're not going to spend an hour and a half or 2 hours generally doing a Zoom call with you, because they only get paid if they fill that job. So they work quickly and they present resumes very quickly. It's not uncommon for a contingent recruiter to, within a day, send 5 or 6, 7, 8 resumes to the hiring manager. If these are candidates that you might talk to, they work very, very quickly, but they don't spend a lot of time with candidates. And then the third kind of recruiter, the third one is a retained, and that's what I do, is retained search. And that's when a company has a hard to fill job, or they have a job to fill. It could be a confidential search, and they retain me. They pay me a retainer to start that search, and then they pay me a fee based on a negotiated rate that is generally in the 30% category. And it can go higher than that, and it can be paid on bonuses and signing bonuses and incentives and other compensation that an executive gets paid. So that's in general. Again, internal recruiters, contingent recruiters, retained recruiters. The difference is, and the reason you want to ask is just to gain an understanding of what the relationship and who's working on the job, so you can understand what what that person's role is and what their approach might be as far as how they're going about vetting candidates, how they're presenting candidates, and what their urgency is maybe. Does anybody have any questions about recruiters, Jeff? I know I spent a little bit more time on that today than normally, but I think it's a good way for candidates to understand who they're talking to.
Yeah, there's no questions yet. I mean, no, I really appreciate the time. I think people really need to understand the difference, because if they understand who's calling them, it'll be a big benefit in the long run.
That's right. And so it's, just asking a couple of questions. If there's people on the call that might be wondering what questions would you ask, well, it's okay to just say, well, could you tell me what kind of recruiter you are? And they'll quickly tell you that they're a contingent recruiter, they've been retained to fill this job, or they're an internal recruiter. And it just gives you the ability to ask more pointed questions as far as what the process is going to look like and so forth. But again, if you've taken that call and you're driving down the road, I don't care what kind of recruiter it is, I encourage you to find an exit and try to get off the highway, park in a shaded place where you can continue to run your air conditioning and have a quiet conversation, and maybe even pull out a notepad and take down some notes. Or ask if you can just call back in 30 minutes so that you can get to a destination that's going to be quiet. But trying to take those calls on the fly, even though you're actively looking for a job, is not the smartest time to take a call. So consider that as you embark in your search. Jeff, how do we share screen here now?
Yeah, you should be able to just click on share screen and.
Let me go to view. Hold on, I'm going to go to full screen, and then I can go down here and I can go to share screen, and I'm going to go to basic. Let's see. Just be patient, guys. I'm going to get there. I promise. Share. Let's see. Okay. Does that pop up?
Yes, we can see your screen. Great.
Okay, Recruiter Advanced. Okay, so what Jeff alluded to when we first started this call is that I use a product called LinkedIn Recruiter, and this is the recruiter product that I use. And what does it really mean is that LinkedIn a number of years ago designed a new product with Korn Ferry. So yeah, another very large executive search firm. And it used to be that as a recruiter, when I first started this 16 years ago, I had a database and I collected resumes and I put them into a database and I could search upon them and look for people and so forth. But the bottom line is that database was outdated, 15 minutes after I got the last resume. People change jobs and move around so frequently that it's impossible for any recruiting firm to keep a database up to date as far as where candidates are and what they're doing. So we all lean in on a product that LinkedIn offers us called LinkedIn Recruiter. So a number of years ago, Korn Ferry went to LinkedIn and said, we don't need to have our own proprietary database anymore. How do we work together to do that? So that's when they designed this LinkedIn Recruiter product. And so LinkedIn Recruiter is built on a separate set of APIs that sits on top of LinkedIn Recruiter. So when I'm using this platform and I start searching for candidates, and you'll see how that works here in a minute, and I click on a profile, the candidate cannot see me. Nobody can see me when I'm in LinkedIn Recruiter. I'm completely hidden to everybody that's in LinkedIn. And the reason that is because if the day ever came that you as a candidate could see me and you called me and said, hey, I understand I just was in LinkedIn, I saw you looked at my profile, can I send you my resume, or what are you looking for? They lose all their business, because we look at, when I'm doing a search, and I'm working on 5 or 6 searches right now, I can look at 40 or 50 candidates a day or in an hour.
And so if every one of those candidates was reaching back to me to say, hey, what can I do to provide you with my resume or something, I'd never get anything done during the day. So that's why it is. So it's a completely a separate set of APIs that plug into LinkedIn. So when you look at my total network, and even though I might, so if I look at my total network is about, what's the number? Take this 90 million people that I have access to, that I can see. I can talk to. I'm connected to. Well, my company's got connections with 18 million people, but I've got in my own personal network, I've got 870,000. Well, no, this is the total number of candidates up here, Jeff, 870, I'm sorry. But then if you go down and I was to look at network relationships, I've got 9,600 people that are directly in my network together or alone itself. So anyway, you as a candidate can't see me, and I have the ability to look for candidates using a ton of different subjects. You can see those right here. So let's start click through them. The spotlight section is really important. It talks about people that are open to work. If you're actively looking for a job, I highly encourage you to go ahead and click that box that tells recruiters that you're actively looking for a new job. You can do it in two ways. You can put the wreath around your head that tells everybody visually that you're looking for a new opportunity, or you can just click the box that just tells recruiters. But either one, it doesn't matter. I encourage you to click that box, because when I start a search and I'm actively looking for somebody, that's the first, when I do a search, that's the first box that I click before I click anything else. Because I want to talk to candidates that are actively looking or would consider a new opportunity. Now, the interesting thing is that we're in this great resignation today. And so the numbers are outstanding, but over 70% of the people that are active or that are working today are actively working. They're employed by a company, are actively looking for a new job, 70%. That number's higher than it's ever been. So not that every one of those people not all those people go into LinkedIn and click the box that they're open to work. But it does demonstrate that the market is very vulnerable right now. The other box that I often look at is this one that says you're more likely to reply. If you didn't know, LinkedIn tracks you, and if you don't reply to messages, then they are going to put you in a box that says that you're less likely to reply to recruiters. And why is that important? Because you saw down at the bottom earlier that I'm only connected to 9,600 people, but my total network is about 870 million people. So I have to use a tool that LinkedIn provides me that's called InMail. And I have unlimited InMails that I can send, but I'm kind of stuck at the point of having to send an InMail to candidates if I don't have their contact information, and hoping that they reply. Now, my reply rate in LinkedIn is one of the higher in the industry, or not in industries, but of recruiters. I spin in that somewhere in the 24 to 34%, depending on what kind of job I'm doing, as far as reply rates. So candidates are getting back to me, but I still look for and actively use that more likely to reply. So again, if you're not replying to messages today, I encourage you to start. It doesn't have to be a long message. It can just be a, thanks, I'm not interested, or maybe I know somebody. Keep in touch, but just make sure you reply to every message. Okay. So the next thing I can search for is I can search for job titles, and we'll go in and actively do a search, but I can also look for locations. I can look for workplace. I can look for skills and assessments. Once I'm starting to do a search, I can search for companies. So I do a lot of work over the years with consumer packaged goods companies. So when I'm doing an active search for a consumer packaged goods company in Dallas, as an example, I might put in Pizza Hut, I might put in Crossmark, Pepsi, avocados from Mexico, Teasdale,
Borden Dairy. I mean, there's hundreds of CPG companies in the Dallas area. So I've got the ability to actively go in and find people within those companies. If I'm working with a company that really cares about pedigree in the schools that you attended, then I have the ability, if I need to go in and put in Princeton and Harvard and Yale and some of those schools, if that's a particular interest. It could be also used, though, when I'm doing a search for a particular industry. I might be looking for somebody that comes out of a food scientist background. And so there's a couple of schools in the country that really specialize in that. So that might be a good way for me to vet looking for candidates as it relates to a particular school that they graduated because of a major. I can look at year of graduation, so I can actually tell people's age per se, if that was something that was important again to me or the company that I'm working for, but it generally isn't. I can look in industries. I can build Boolean searches, so I can put strings of words together and create keyword searches to look for keywords in people's profiles. I can then also search for employment type, whether or not they're looking for full-time, part-time, contract, internships. I can we looked at relationships, who are the people that I'm most connected to. So I use that frequently when I'm starting a search. I'm working in Kansas City for a law firm, and I'm looking for a controller and I'm looking for an HR executive. And so in each of those cases, I would go to my network relationships. I don't care what industry you work in. I don't care what school you went to. I don't care what company you work for. But if you are connected to me and you live in Kansas City, then I sent you a note that says, hey, great people know great people. If you know anybody that's looking for a new opportunity, I've got these two roles, and I'll send them a blurb about each one of those. So I do use that network relationship, and very infrequently am I placing somebody that I'm directly connected to. It's generally outside of that. If I'm working a search and somebody tells me that you need to talk to Kevin, he's in Kansas City and he works for a law firm, and they specialize in torts, then you just gave me a whole bunch of things. I got Kevin, I've got Kansas City, I've got torts, I've got a lot of other words. I may not know his last name, but I'll find a way to find Kevin. So that's a great way for me to use the tools together. Some of these advanced searches I don't use a lot, but if I were to need somebody that spoke of language, I could use languages. I could search for a certain postal code. That might be important. I was doing a search for a family business out on Long Island, and so Long Island is a big island, and I didn't want to try to pull people from New York City out to Long Island. I wanted to try to find people that actually lived in Long Island. So I literally found a couple of the zip codes and put those in there, and was able to quickly identify people that had those skills. But you can see there's just a whole plethora of things that I can search for as it relates to candidate details, education and experience, companies that they've worked for, company sizes, people that they're following. And then I can track those candidates and add them into recruiting activity, put them into groups, add tags, projects, notes, and all kinds of other things that help me keep track of those people. Okay. Jeff, any questions so far?
Not yet.
Okay. Remember, I'm here for only an hour. If you got questions, put them up there so we can get them answered, right, Jeff? So let's just go in and start looking at some candidates and at some profiles of what we might search for. So I've done this in so many different cities and different places. Jeff, anything particular you want me to search for today?
Boy, I should have ever thought about it. How about let's look for a CFO in the Denver area. I don't know.
Where I'm at. I'm going to put in a couple of words. I'm going to put in controller, financial controller, CFO. I might put in county manager is probably not high enough. Principal chief financial officer. I might put in senior account or vice president of finance. That might be close. I can search for whether they are current in this role or past. I can search for current or past, not current or past. We want to go to Denver, so let's go to Denver, Colorado. And let's just start there and see what we got. So if I hit search on that, it shows that I've got about 3,900 people that are in the Denver area that have, well, there's actually 4,000 people that have in the Denver area that have had this kind of experience in some way. They've done that kind of work. Okay.
Can we go add into spotlights and put people who are open to work and people
Yeah.
who are most likely to respond?
Yep.
That may cut it down a little bit.
Yep. So we went from 4,000, just to give everybody a good visibility, we went from 4,000 people now to 569 people. So you can understand the importance of putting those, of replying to messages. And if you're open to work, putting that tag in there. Because as Jeff alluded, there's no way that I can search for 4,000 people. In 3 days, I probably can't go through 4,000 profiles, but I can look at probably 300 or 400 people in a couple of hours, especially if I know what I'm looking for. So meaning that Dan, he doesn't give us his last name, but he is, he's in the marketing and advertising space. So if I'm looking for somebody that is in biotechnology, as an example, that may be a key word that I simplify and shrink that down. But for instance, when I'm working for in Kansas City, I'm working for a law firm and they're in the services industry. So in that case, let's just say that I was conducting that search in Denver. Dan might be a good candidate to look at. So let's just look at what Dan's got in his profile, just to start looking at candidates and what they've done and how they can use that space. Okay. Dan, again, he hasn't given me his last name. That's fine. You can see where it highlights the keywords. So it's highlighted the chief financial officer. It highlights it in the experience. But you can see that this executive has given us very little information. Okay. Not only little information about himself, but information about what he's done. There's some really, really valuable real estate here that he could have taken advantage of that he hasn't taken advantage of by providing information about what he does and what he's done. Earlier, when we were going through the things that you can search for, I mentioned keywords. That's one of the key subjects today, that if you don't take away from this meeting, nothing else you do, keywords is critical. Every candidate that I coach, one of the first things I ask them to do is to develop a list of keywords. Take a page in the back of your notebook and make a list of all the keywords that describe what you do and what you've done. Look at old job descriptions, look at current job descriptions. If you've done that, then make sure that it's a keyword that you're using. So there's just, depending on your industry, there's literally thousands of keywords that you can draw upon that describe what you've done. In this case, again, Dan has not taken the advantage of doing that and using any keywords other than chief financial officer, and that's a title. It's not a keyword. So I would highly encourage everybody on this call to take light to the fact that make a list of those keywords and then use this real estate under each of these jobs to describe what you've done and using those keywords to describe the work that you've done and how you've done it. You will become more searchable. Recruiters will find you more quickly. You'll turn up in more recruiter searches by taking advantage of building out that list of keywords. Highly, highly important for you to do. If it's 100 keywords, that's fine. Smother them out throughout your LinkedIn profile. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, you'll see where I've got, I'm a recruiter, but I've got headhunter, executive search consultant. I've got, 25 different ways to describe executive search because not everybody calls me the same thing. Sometimes I get called bad names, but a lot of times I get called a headhunter. Sometimes I get called a recruiter. But in essence, there's a lot of things that you could call a recruiter. So I've used that real estate to describe those keywords in hopes that when people are looking for me, I come up more frequently on their search. Okay. So that's why we want you to develop those keywords and why it's so important. Hang on just a second. I'm gonna have my son give me. Okay, cool. See you there in a little bit. So keywords are really important, and this candidate hasn't taken a very good stab at that, but that's okay. While I'm here in Denver, I'll look him up and give him that advice. Okay. Now, the other thing that he hasn't done is he's not given me his contact information. He's open to work. So he's given us that wreath that I call that says that he's open to work. He's telling everybody, whether you're using LinkedIn Recruiter or you're just using LinkedIn, the non-for-pay version, everybody can see that, that Dan is open to work, okay? So if he's open to work, why doesn't he take the time to, and it's because he hasn't been coached, it's okay, to, in his summary section here, is taking advantage of that real estate and giving us his email or his phone number, okay? That's a huge differentiator. If I want to talk to Dan, there's really nothing that I can do. He's probably still, he says that he's still at Selling Simplified. So I could go in and do a Google search on Selling Simplified and then get their phone number and call and ask to talk to Dan J. I do that quite frequently, and when I'm trying to find expedite my process, I'll call the company directly and try to reach that candidate. But the only option that I've got right now is to click this button right here, and that's just to send or compose a message. Now, they give me all kinds of tools to do that so that I can do it really easily and I can do it really fast. So if there's any question about, you know, how many LinkedIn profiles I can look at and how many messages I can send, I can look at about 100 profiles in an hour and I can send out about 25 messages because it goes this quick. All I do is pull up a template. I've got all these templates. Let's use this controller. It's all there. I take out Scott's name. I put in Dan, okay? When I'm typing well. And let's try this one more time. I put in Dan's name. I can attach the job description if I want to. I can put a job description in here, but I just hit send and it sends him a message, and then I can save him in a project. So I can put him in a project so I can remember where he's at and what his name is for future reference, okay? So that's the only option I've got. But if Dan knew that he could put his phone number and his email address in there, and I was really interested in talking to Dan, I wouldn't send him an email. I'd just pick up the phone and call him. Okay. And that's a game changer because we're looking at about 569 people. I don't know if any of these people are actually going to give me in the section their email and phone number. But here's an example of the next candidate that's given, look at this summary. I mean, it's very active and utilizes the real estate very well about talking about what they've done, mergers and acquisitions, funding and resource management, delivered financial solutions, leverage financial businesses, core competencies, just all kinds of stuff. So again, no phone number and email address, but a whole lot more information. Edward's taken advantage of that real estate. He's also taken advantage of it under each job. You can see where he's not given me, like you see in a resume, where he's given me bullets, but he's written out, he's taken advantage of the real estate by writing out what he's done and using keywords along the way, okay? So, I mean, I can just see all kinds of keywords. I see manufacturing, I see customer relations, logistics, operations. If those were keywords that I put into a Boolean search, then, you know, that would be, I'd be all over this guy. Now, interesting though, I'm gonna go back. Okay, he's not like Dan that has telling everybody, but he has selected open to work, okay? Now, as a recruiter, so oftentimes when I'm trying to reach Edward, I send him that email because I don't have his email address and phone number. I can't do that directly. and I send it off and a day or two go by and I haven't heard from him, I might come in here and look at this connection and see how well do I know Eddie, and would Eddie consider making an introduction to Edward? I don't do it often, but I will tell you that it worked for me in Kansas City recently, where I was trying to reach a guy that had indicated in his LinkedIn messaging that he was not interested in receiving messages from recruiters, but I was really interested in him. So I tracked him down through a connection, and the connection didn't give me his phone number and his email address. People are a little reluctant to do that, but she did send a note to Michael, and Michael called me within 24 hours. And I said, you might want to update your LinkedIn profile because you're not really easy to get a hold of right now. And he is actively looking. So it was a lesson for him as well. But you can start to see how a recruiter, we click on, I go to Deborah. I'm looking at these really quickly. I'm looking for keywords based on what I'm looking for. I said I was looking for somebody in the services industry. So I'm looking for people that have got that, worked in those kinds of industries. Timberline fasteners, that's a product. I can tell right off the bat that it's she's counting gadgets and gidgets. She worked at the Math Learning Center. That's a service industry. She was at Miller Coors for a long time. Miller Coors is headquarters here. So that's, again, a product. Product people that are controllers or financial people in product companies generally don't translate real well into the service industry. But again, I might save her to a project for later communication, or I have the ability to click on this box and send her a note. I can put her into a reminder section. So I'm working with a client. I might get a search down the way. So I might click on and create a reminder to remind me 30 days from now to go back and look at Deborah for some reason. Okay. Any questions so far, Jeff?
Yeah, we've got two questions. Number one, is talent acquisition considered to be an internal recruiter?
No, I can be considered a talent acquisition. It is a term that people use in internal recruiting. So yes, that you will see that quite frequently, but it does lend itself outside of working for a company. So don't take that for granted.
Okay.
But great question.
All right. Second question is, do contingency recruiters have the LinkedIn recruiter access?
Yeah, any recruiter, anybody can use a LinkedIn recruiter. You just have to pay for it. And so anybody can buy it. I've got a new gentleman that's just joining my team, and instead of investing in LinkedIn Recruiter, LinkedIn's got a LinkedIn Recruiter Lite program that they offer as well. But yeah, anybody can use LinkedIn Recruiter that wants to. Like I said, they just got to pay for it.
And I'll just add that, Contingent Recruiters, I know there's a recruiting firm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They have like 30 people. They primarily hire accounting, administrative kind of people is what they're looking for. And of the 34 people, none of them pay LinkedIn for the recruiting package. They're just searching LinkedIn as you and I, anybody who doesn't pay for it would be searching for LinkedIn. So
yep.
That's why you probably want to put that green banner on there, let people know that you're looking for a job if you're open to a new opportunity.
That's right. I think so, because anybody recruiting could use any number of products that LinkedIn has got, and LinkedIn Recruiter is just the top end of what they offer as far as the number of in-mails that we can send and the network that we've got visibility into and some of the other things. Good suggestion, though. So I think that one of the things that comes up with people often is this graduation. I'm going to go right there because people are always asking it, do recruiters recruit for young people? And that's so false. I mean, it's, but here's the way that we can use when you graduated, and we can slide this along and put in there anywhere we want as it relates to, finding candidates that are within a certain per se age bracket. I can tell you that use this probably maybe 1 out of 30 searches. And it's oddly enough, I'll give you a classic example. I'm working with a family-owned business, a family office actually, in the southeast part of the country. And the G2s are about 68, 70 years old, and the G3s are, I think, between 34 and 42 years old. And so as we look for somebody to be a CFO or a controller to lead and run that family office, one of the things that they brought, to me at one point was, we'd like to see some people that are a little bit older. We think that our kids, the G3s, would reply and learn better from somebody that was a little bit older and not their same age. And so I don't see a lot of age discrimination out there today or even in the past, but that would be a way and a reason for me to use that year of graduation tool, instead of just looking at candidates after candidate after candidate and trying to figure it out on my own. That's a quick way for me to scale down a set of candidates. But just like any other good recruiter, I use LinkedIn Recruiter as a starting point. If I just sat here and sent LinkedIn messages to fill jobs, I'd be doing all of my clients a disservice. So I use it as a starting point to build relationships with people, to identify people, to identify leaders in the community. When I conduct a search, for New Orleans, I went to Tulane, and I've talked to the president of the university. I've talked to the head of their recruiting or their career center. And somebody might say, well, you're not going to find, a family office manager in a career center at a university. Are you serious? I mean, those are the kids that are coming out of college. Well, but the people that run those centers and those executives that work for those universities are generally pretty well tenured into the community. And even though they're coaching young people and college kids, they still have alumni that come back, and they're still going to events and talking to people. So that doesn't mean that they might not know somebody that's a little bit older. They may not have even gone to Tulane, but they might be a part of their Rotary Club. I don't know where people go. And if I made assumptions about where people go every day and hang out and what they do and the networking that they do, I would never fill jobs as effectively as I do today. So I'm giving you all this information because this is the place that it should start. This is not Match.com. So I encourage you to consider putting your information out there. If you feel uncomfortable about giving both your phone number and your email address, then just put your email address, and that doesn't give them any information about where you live or anything else. If you don't like the email, then you can delete it. But this is not Match.com, and I just encourage you to really use this tool to even explore outside the boxes. Jeff, we've got about 15 minutes here. We've really never. I know that you've got other people that talk about LinkedIn, but when you're reverse engineering and using LinkedIn as a tool to help find a job, you're in the jobs section, but you're also actively trying to find ways to communicate with people. If you were looking for a job in Denver, then some of these people that we've just looked at here would be great people to network with. And you might not get them to reply to an email that you send to them, but you can certainly, again, Edward is actively looking. He doesn't have his, the wreath around his head, but he's the general manager. And it looks like he's still there at Serendipitous. Okay. So I have the ability to go in and look at what Serendipitous is It's an advanced biologic company. It tells me where they're at, what they do. I can see more information. But if I want to, I can just go Google this, grab this, copy it, paste it into a Google. I think I'm going to lose you here, but copy that name into Google and put in headquarter phone number and look for serendipitous phone number and call and literally pick up the phone and say, hey, Edward, I found you on LinkedIn. I'm actively looking for a new job. And the work that you do looks really interesting. And I did a bunch of research on your company, and it's an amazing organization. Can we talk for 12 minutes? I'd love to learn more about what keeps you guys up at night and what some of the biggest problems you're trying to solve. So, use LinkedIn well past just the ability to send in-mails or to find people and where they work. Literally use it as a tool, a selling tool, and pick up the phone and call these people, track them down at their office, and see if you can't start or create a conversation with them.
All right, I've got a couple questions here. Margaret says, let's see here. Kurt's search results show a section on spotlights, and it currently shows open to work. If someone opts to use the other option of only tell recruiters, would that still show up in your search?
Yeah. So Edward was one of those candidates. Let me go up here. I want to close all this down. Let's see.
I think it's that middle tab.
Yeah. Let me see what it bounce this down a little bit. Yeah. Let's go. He didn't have the picture run his head, but he
yeah, just click on that middle. Oops, no, bring that back up again. And
it's this
then
middle one right here.
Now that one right there, click there. I think that should bring up your list.
Yeah. Okay. So he he just has this. If I go back here, he has open to work right here. Okay. That's the open to work. He doesn't have the cycle or the calendar or the wreath around his neck. Dan has the wreath and open to work. So Dan is selected to tell everybody, and this is the recruiter piece that he's open to work. So if you just select the open to work, but you don't tell recruiters, that's how it's going to show up on my side. Is
So
that open to work?
Stephen asked, I was told not to put open to work for public profile, but to do so for recruiting. Is that correct?
If you're actively looking for a job, why wouldn't you tell everybody? Jeff, I tell the story about when I was actively looking, I would just find myself in public trying to go out as often as I could. If I was going to meet a buddy for a cocktail at 5 o'clock, I'd show up at the bar at 4:30 and I'd sit there and have a loud conversation in case somebody else was listening. Yeah, I can come a little early today because I'm actively looking for a new job. And maybe somebody down the line might be a recruiter or might know somebody that has a job for me. When I'd go to the grocery store, I'd stand in line and I'd kid with the ladies in front of me or behind and say, I get to go to the grocery store every day because I'm unemployed. And I got business cards from people all the time that said, hey, my husband's looking for great salespeople, call him, or he's a recruiter, call him. So, why wouldn't you want to tell everybody? So I'm sorry, I don't know that there's a right or a wrong answer, but if you are actively looking for a new job, you are unemployed, you're an active candidate, then I would select the wreath and I would say that I'm open to work and tell everybody out there.
And the other thing too is that it also tells your other contacts, if they happen to see your profile, if you post something and they happen to read your post and they go, oh, I didn't realize that Jeff's looking for a new job right now, but I saw you have a wreath posted. What's going on? How can I help you?
Yeah, you just that's brilliant, and I've never really talked about that, but that is absolutely so brilliant because how many times would I live in LinkedIn, so for me to go to LinkedIn on on a weekly basis or a whatever, I'm in there all the time because that's what I do. But if I wasn't, and I was working for a corporation and I just went to LinkedIn on a monthly or weekly basis, like I do Facebook or everywhere else, just seeing what's going on, and I saw somebody's name pop up that I'd worked with in the past, it would immediately be a note to what's going on. I can't imagine that you're unemployed or you're looking for a new opportunity. What can I do to help you? So it works in all ways. It's just not for recruiting, but it's for your personal network as well, Jeff. That's brilliant.
Great. Another comment is for anybody who's afraid to put their phone number out on LinkedIn, you can get a Google Voice number for free.
Yep.
And put that number on LinkedIn, and then just have that Google Voice number roll over to your cell phone, and your cell phone will, that number will never be publicized. Your private cell phone number will never be publicized.
Great suggestion.
Jason asked, how do job seekers get to the top of a search on LinkedIn Recruiter?
We've talked about this, Jeff, a number of times. I don't know the answer to that. It's a crazy algorithm because look at Dan J. I mean, he's not in my network. Okay. He doesn't even have his full name. He has a pretty crummy profile. And when I conducted this search, he was right there. Now, I think that it does have something to do with, and this is the only thing that I can come up with, is that I put in a chief financial officer, and he's got that in his LinkedIn profile 1, 2, 3, 4 times at least. If you go back and you look at Edward, he's got chief financial officer, none. Okay. So it could be that, just as an example, that because of the keyword searches that we put in there, that it drives it. But I wouldn't really, we used to spend a lot of time on trying to look at whose name came up first and what did they have in their profile and how can you mimic that to make your profile look like that. And here's a classic example. If I were copying a profile, I'd copy Edward's before I copied Dan's, and Dan's ahead of Edward. So I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, but it could be that Dan, maybe he is most likely to respond. Maybe he responds to things more often.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he posts more often. Maybe he likes and shares articles that maybe makes him a more active user. So just something to consider that's out there.
Sorry, I'm gonna plug in my computer for y'all. Yeah, so those are all great questions. What other questions would people have? Because this is great stuff.
Let's see here. All right, if you've just become unemployed, what are your thoughts on leaving your present position in place? Would there be any advantage to leaving the end date to present appearing to be employed just for a little bit, or how long should you leave that?
Great question. I would feel very comfortable leaving present in there for about 6 months. Okay. It's kind of a double-edged sword. So you're going to go out there and you're going to put that you're open to work, and you're going to put the green wreath on, and you're going to put open to work. But at the same time, you're going to leave your new job, or your current job is that you're still active. You're still actively there. I think that, I wouldn't leave it on there. I wouldn't leave it there for more than 6 months. But it's common that we talk to candidates, and it says present, but we find out in the conversation very quickly that they left 2 or 3 months ago. So there's really no right or wrong.
Okay. So, I mean, we're almost at the top of the hour. What are your top 2 or 3 tips for people on LinkedIn so that you can be found and easily reached out to?
Yeah, so we talked about a few of them. I just encourage you to use the tools that they give you. We saw real quickly here in Denver where I went from 4,900 people to 569 people just putting in that they were open to new opportunities. Okay. So that's a real quick way to get to the top or to be recognized by recruiters more quickly. Second thing, use the real estate that you've got. Put your contact information in there if you feel comfortable with it. After you get your next JOB, you can take it out of there. If you feel uncomfortable putting both, put your email address or your phone number. Use the Google phone number. Both of those solutions work really well. And then keywords. I just can't overemphasize the use of keywords and building a great tool for yourself in using those keywords. It's use them in your resume, use them in your LinkedIn profile, use them in all of your communication. Those keywords are absolutely critical, and they're going to pop up all over the place. The way that our technology today works, it's daunting as far as the way people get found, and it's just us talking that my computer. I'm deviating a little bit here, Jeff, but I was with my daughter in Austin about 4 weeks ago. And we talked about Google and search engine optimization and things like that. And I came home and I wrote her a note a week later as a follow-up that said, hey, Murphy, when we get together next, we want to talk about Google search and this and this and this. And just as a recap of things, within 8 minutes, my phone rang. And it was somebody supposedly from Google calling me to say that they wanted to help me get recognized more easily and more frequently, and at the end it was $799, and they'll do this and this and this for me, and I hung up on the person. But the fact of the matter is that it was something that I sent in my email. That got picked up by somebody. So the intelligence that our networks have today are just remarkable. But keywords are never going to go away. And I just encourage you to continue to update, upgrade, and use keywords in your LinkedIn profile. Modify them every day. Go in there and change them, add, delete, modify. But keywords are absolutely critical to getting found and sought after by recruiters.
Well, Kirk, thank you very much for your time. I think great information. Hopefully everybody enjoyed this session. If you want to go back, you'll be able to go back and view it. We'll have it up on the Career USA YouTube channel in a couple hours. So Kirk, once again, thank you very much. Enjoy your time in Denver.
Okay, peace, guys.
All right, next week, I'll be the presenter. I'm going to talk about LinkedIn, Present Yourself Like a Pro. This is a presentation I put together for a national conference a couple months ago. And I'll be sharing that next Tuesday, being the 5th Tuesday of the month. We only have 4 regular speakers, so I'm going to fill in as the 5th to fill out the month. All right, I need everybody to please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Jeff Morris, promise to always send a personal note whenever I send a LinkedIn request to connect with anyone. This includes when I use my cell phone or my computer. Very, very, very important. Always send that personal note. I get connection requests every day. And if there's not a personal note with it telling me why we should connect, I don't connect with the person because I don't know why we should connect. So whenever you see a white connect button on LinkedIn, never press the white connect button. What you want to do is you want to look for the blue connect button. So if you see a white connect button, click on the person's face, because when you click on the person's face, you will then be able to find that blue connect button to send that personal note. Career DFW, Career USA, we're putting on training 4 days a week. This week we'll be putting on our 500th career workshop since COVID started. Tomorrow on Interviewing Wednesdays, you'll be able to watch an actual practice interview. We've got a candidate lined up, and you'll be able to watch that person be interviewed by 2 or 3 interviewers. And you'll be able to see the whole process and what a practice interview is. And if you'd like to have a practice interview, you can go to dallaspitcrew.com to get more information. This Thursday, being the 4th Thursday of the month, we'll talk about networking. Tom Jackson, who was a job seeker who got hired about the last 4 or 5 months ago, will be talking about his process and what he did and how he networks with people. So you can join us this Thursday at 1 o'clock. This Friday at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group meeting, we'll talk about personal branding. How do you brand yourself? How do you come across other people when they look at your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook page? They are going to Google you. They are going to look you up. So how do you brand yourself? Personal branding. Don will be with us this Friday at 9:30. You're welcome to join the Career DFW and Career USA LinkedIn groups. On the Career DFW group, we have over 13,700 members. You do not need to live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to join that group. I just started I started each one of these groups when I started the websites. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. On the Career USA YouTube channel, click on playlist. Every video that I upload goes into a playlist. Find the list you want: resumes, interviewing, LinkedIn, etc. And don't click on the video, but down below where you see that red arrow, click on View Full Playlist. And then up will come a list of all the dates, topics, and people who did the presentation. And you can go back and find any one of those topics right there to go back and view at your leisure. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops and you'd like to join the Career USA mailing list, just send an email to Career USA, +subscribe@groups.io. You'll never be spammed, but what you will get is the topic of the day, the title of the day, and most importantly, the Zoom link of the day. That way you can grab your lunch, grab your breakfast, and join us on the call. Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Kurt's a volunteer. All of our speakers are volunteers. I'm a volunteer. Everything I've done over the last 13 years has been to help you land your next great opportunity. So please consider making a donation when you get your next job. We'd really appreciate it so we can continue to provide the services that we do. So thank you very much for joining us today, everybody. Have a great afternoon, and we'll hopefully see you tomorrow.